Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move through life untouched by chaos, while others fight for every inch and still lose ground? It's not luck, it's not fate, it's the quiet art of moving in ways no one can predict. The kind of power you can't see until it's already shaping the outcome. If Niccolo Machiavelli were alive today, you wouldn't find him posting online, chasing likes, or proving himself in public debates. He'd be somewhere in the background, calm, unshaken, quietly influencing the decisions that decide everything. While others fight to be noticed, he would win by being invisible, because what is unseen can't be stopped, and what is unknown can't be defended against. In a world addicted to attention, most people hand over their power just to feel seen. Machiavelli would do the opposite. He would let others speak first, reveal themselves fully, and only then make his move, precise, deliberate, and irreversible. This isn't about manipulation for its own sake. It's about protecting your position, your peace, and your influence in a world where everything you show becomes something others can use. Today, we'll explore 15 rare rules of power, the kind no one talks about, drawn from the kind of strategies Machiavelli might use if he walked among us now. Listen closely. The smallest shift in how you act could change the entire game. Rule 1. Let them underestimate you. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the unspoken weight of people sizing you up, their eyes scanning, their minds quietly deciding who you are before you've said a word? Most of us feel the urge to correct them, to prove ourselves, to make sure they see our strength. But the Stoics would remind us, your strength is not something that needs to be displayed to be real. In fact, the most unshakable power is the kind that remains unseen until the right moment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In the same way, the best advantage is not to join the scramble for recognition. Let others fight to be noticed, to shout their worth. You remain still, watching, listening, learning. Picture a commander who arrives last to the council, letting the noise settle before speaking. He studies the map, the faces, the tensions in the room. And when he finally speaks, it is with words that cut through the air like a blade, shifting the entire direction without raising his voice. I knew a craftsman once who worked in silence while his competitors bragged about projects not yet finished. They thought he was slow, perhaps even lacking skill. But when the season ended, his work stood alone in quality, already sold before theirs was even complete. By the time they realized the opportunity to match him had passed, his quiet pace had been his shield, and their underestimation had been his weapon. The Stoic path teaches us that the less you announce your intentions, the more room you have to act freely. Let them think you are harmless. Let them think you are small. The moment someone stops seeing you as a threat, they lower their guard. And when their guard is lowered, the truth of your strength can arrive without resistance. Do not rush to reveal your power. Hold it like a sword, still in its sheath, calm, patient, waiting. When the right moment comes, you will not need to shout. The action itself will speak, and it will be too late for them to prepare. Now, let us step into the next lesson, where the shape of power shifts from silence to influence. Rule 2. Control what they see. Have you ever noticed how quickly people form plans against you the moment they understand how you move? The instant your path is visible, someone begins laying obstacles in it. The Stoics knew that not every truth deserves an audience, and not every plan needs to be spoken aloud. What is unseen is harder to harm. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the inner life must be walled off. In our age, people are eager to display their progress, to gather praise before the work is even done. But the one who seeks quiet mastery understands that exposure invites interference. Let the world see the surface, the calm water, the gentle current, while beneath, your oars cut with precision and force. I once knew a man who built ships for a living. While his rivals boasted about their designs before they were even tested, he kept his dock covered and his hands busy. Rumors spread that he had grown slow, maybe even idle. Then, one morning, his vessel appeared in the harbor, complete, flawless, and ready to sail before the others had even finished their frame. By the time they understood his methods, the wind had already carried him far beyond their reach. To walk the Stoic path is to protect the sanctity of your work. Appear noble, move decisively. Do not explain your reasoning, for explanation gives others the tools to resist you. Do not reveal the whole shape of your labor until the moment it stands finished. Let them think you are resting. Let them think you are behind. And then pass them in silence, leaving only the echo of your wake. Guard your intentions as you would guard a fortress. Let the gates open only when the victory is already certain. For what is hidden cannot be hindered, and what is complete cannot be undone. From here, we move to the next truth, where the mask you wear becomes part of your weapon. Rule 3. Fracture the mask. Have you ever met someone who seemed perfectly composed, steady voice, calm eyes, flawless manners, yet in a single unguarded moment revealed something raw and unforgettable? It's strange, isn't it? How perfection can be admirable, but never haunting. The Stoics understood that a life without any cracks hides not strength, but distance. Seneca wrote, "Even the wise man needs a touch of humanity." To walk among others with quiet authority, you must first craft the mask. A presence that is calm, disciplined, and unshaken. Let your words be measured, your temper steady, your steps certain. This is the face the world will come to expect from you. But just once, in a moment you choose, allow that mask to shift. Show a flash of vulnerability, a hint of the storms you have weathered, a sharp word that carries the weight of deep conviction. In that instant, you become more than an image. You become a mystery they cannot stop thinking about. I recall an old sea captain who was known for his unbreakable composure. In years of storms and mutinies, his voice never rose, his hands never trembled. But one night, as the crew faced a gale that threatened to tear the ship apart, he told a single story of the first ship he ever lost and the fear he had carried ever since. He said it plainly, then returned to his duties. That night, the crew followed him with a loyalty deeper than before. They had seen the man behind the legend, and that glimpse bound them to him. Give the world enough to trust you, but never the whole of you. Let them feel they have almost understood you, but not quite. For people do not chase what they already hold. They chase what slips just beyond their grasp. Be the light they rely on, then reveal a shadow they did not expect. And when you close the curtain again, they will follow, hoping for another glimpse. Now we turn to the next lesson, where even your words become fewer, and the silence itself holds the weight of command. Rule 4. Charm over truth. Have you ever trusted someone not because you weighed every fact, but because you simply wanted to believe them? It's a disquieting truth. People follow what they feel about you long before they examine what is real about you. The Stoics understood that perception can open doors that raw truth alone cannot. As Seneca observed, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The same is true of admiration. It is often born of the image, not the substance. In a world where voices shout for recognition, the wise do not always rush to prove themselves. They let the image they project carry the weight. Let others see steadiness, fairness, perhaps even warmth, while beneath you move with the precision needed to achieve your purpose. You need not parade your integrity. It will not be measured by all. Instead, let your presence be like a well-set stage. The audience sees the play, never the ropes and pulleys behind the curtain. I once met a negotiator who never entered a room with a hardened stance. He would praise his opponent's skill, nod at their wisdom, and listen more than he spoke. In that space, they would relax, sometimes even overreach, believing him harmless. By the time the agreement was signed, the terms quietly favored him. Later, they would admit they had liked him too much to question him sharply. Charm, when guided by discipline, is not vanity, it is a tool. Do not waste time correcting how others see you. Let them hold to their chosen image. If they crown you the hero, accept it with a calm nod, even if your purpose is yet unfinished. For in the gap between who you are and who they believe you to be lies the space to shape the ending. And so, we move forward from the power of what they think they see to the power of what they cannot quite understand. Rule 5. Create intentional ambiguity. Have you ever met someone you could never quite figure out? One day they were warm, the next they were distant. Sometimes they spoke with intensity, other times they vanished into silence. And somehow, instead of pushing you away, this only drew you closer. The Stoics knew that a mind preoccupied with trying to define another becomes chained to them. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, so why not let their thoughts be of you? Most people rush to be understood, to clarify every action, to make sure no one misreads them. But in doing so, they hand away their power. When you become a puzzle, people study you. They weigh every word, search for meaning in your silences, try to predict your next move, and in that search, they orbit you. The more they wonder, the more their focus bends toward you. I once knew a merchant who never revealed the true size of his fleet. When asked, he would smile and speak of the sea instead of ships. Some days he appeared at the docks overseeing trade. Other days he was nowhere to be found. Rivals debated whether he was struggling or thriving, unsure whether to compete or to court his favor. By the time they thought they had their answer, his ships had already secured the most profitable routes. To walk the Stoic path is to act with intention, not compulsion. You are not erratic, you are deliberate. You leave space in your story for others to fill with their own assumptions. You let silence do the work that explanation cannot. And when they ask questions you choose not to answer, you simply smile, for you know that curiosity is a stronger chain than any spoken command. Do not fear being misunderstood. Fear instead the ease with which others can predict you. For the one they cannot read is the one they cannot prepare for. From here, we turn to the next truth, where even your smallest words carry the weight of command. Rule 6. Speak less than needed. Have you ever left a conversation replaying someone's brief words in your mind, wondering what they truly meant? Often, it is not the flood of speech that leaves an impression, but the drop of water that ripples long after it falls. The Stoics valued restraint in speech, knowing that words are like arrows. Once released, they cannot be taken back, and their number should be few but precise. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Let your speech be precise, your actions true." In a world that rewards noise, the disciplined few master silence. When you speak only what is needed, you do more than share thoughts, you command attention. In times of dispute or tension, say one clear sentence, then stop. Let the air between words grow heavy. That space will work for you in ways no argument can. For in that pause, others begin to imagine, to question, to fill in the gaps with their own unease. I recall a merchant who, during a heated negotiation, listened quietly as his rival spoke at length, listing demands and threats. When the room finally turned to him, he simply said, "That may be so," and folded his hands. He offered nothing more. The rival, unsettled, began speaking again, revealing weaknesses he had not intended to show. By the end, the merchant had agreed to terms entirely in his favor, without raising his voice or repeating himself. To say less is not to be absent. It is to be deliberate. Speak with the sharpness of a blade, not the softness of a blanket. Do not try to satisfy every question or defend every choice. Leave room for others to wonder, because mystery is forged not in what you reveal, but in what you withhold. When you can hold your tongue while others spill theirs, you are already ahead. And as we move forward, you'll see how even a smile, when paired with silence, can become the most disarming weapon of all. Rule 7. Blur threat and ally. Have you ever noticed how uneasy people become when they cannot place you neatly into a box, friend or foe, ally or rival? Most rush to declare where they stand, believing clarity earns safety. But the Stoics would remind us, a wise man does not owe the world the full map of his mind. What they do not know, they cannot counter. In a time when everyone seeks to read intentions, the one who remains unreadable holds the greater power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock against which the waves break, unmoving, yet not revealing where the next tide will take you. Sit with those who might wish you gone, offer them warmth without surrendering your edge. Complement the ideas of those you quietly plan to surpass. Defend someone publicly, even if in your heart you know they cannot remain in your circle. When people believe you are harmless, they rest, and the best time to move is when they are asleep." I recall a story of a general who, on the eve of a decisive campaign, dined with a rival commander. He toasted his opponent's wisdom, spoke of the honor of sharing the field, and departed with a smile. Days later, the rivals' forces found themselves outmaneuvered, their supply lines cut without warning. Even in defeat, they remembered his kindness at the table and wondered if they had imagined the threat entirely. To blur the line between threat and ally is not to live dishonestly, it is to live strategically. You must be the fox that senses the trap and the lion whose presence keeps wolves at bay. Speak less than you think. Smile more than you explain. Appear to stand still while quietly positioning yourself where no hand can reach you. If this resonates, type hidden power in the comments. A small reminder to yourself to master what others cannot see. And if you wish to keep learning the art of moving with quiet precision, subscribe and walk with us to the next lesson, where trust itself becomes the ground on which you choose to advance or retreat. Rule 8. Make them feel safe. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you stopped watching your own steps? There is a peculiar calm that settles in when we believe another is on our side, a calm that can blind us to where they are truly standing. The Stoics knew this. Danger often arrives not with a roar, but with a smile. Marcus Aurelius warned himself to be watchful, even in peace, for the seeds of change are sown quietly. If you wish to move decisively, do not approach as an enemy. Approach as an ally. Let your words reflect their own. Praise what is worth praising. Disagree in ways so gentle they feel like agreement. Never make them feel as though they are losing ground. Instead, let them believe they are leading you forward. I once heard of a statesman who wished to replace his rival without sparking open conflict. He studied the man's habits, spoke in his phrases, even championed his proposals. Over months, the rival grew comfortable, confident that this was a friend, perhaps even a protégé. Then, at the decisive moment, the statesman stepped forward into a position the other had left unguarded. By the time realization struck, the seat was already his, and the path to reclaim it was gone. To make another feel safe is not mere cunning, it is a form of discipline. You do not waste strength in open struggle when the same goal can be reached in quiet certainty. Tell them what they need to hear. Show them what they want to see. Allow them to hand you the keys while believing it was their own idea. By the time they notice the shift, the moment for resistance will have passed. And as we move to the next lesson, we will see how dependency, once created, becomes a chain stronger than force. Rule 9. Foster dependence, then withdraw. Have you ever realized the true weight someone carried in your life only after they were gone? The human heart is slow to value what feels constant, and yet it trembles when that constancy is withdrawn. The Stoics understood this, that loss often strikes harder than conflict, for it is the quiet absence that reshapes a person's ground. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And sometimes the way is found not by pushing, but by stepping aside. If you wish to hold influence without force, you give others what no one else can: guidance, solutions, a stability they could not build on their own. You do this without demanding their gratitude, without binding them with visible chains. Slowly, they lean on your presence, believing it to be unshakable. I recall a craftsman who took on an eager apprentice. The young man was talented but clumsy in his trade. Patiently, the master corrected his hands, taught him secrets no book contained, and shielded him from mistakes that would have ruined his work. Over time, the apprentice began to believe his own progress was entirely his own doing. Then, one day, the master was gone. No quarrel, no farewell. The workshop felt suddenly colder, the tools heavier, the tasks more daunting. Only then did the apprentice see how much of his strength had been borrowed. To create this kind of void is not malice, it is precision. When a man has built his footing upon your support, the removal of that support forces him to see its value. He may not hate you for leaving, but he will wrestle with the emptiness you've left behind. That absence will echo longer than any act of confrontation. When you step away at the right moment, you become more than a presence. You become a measure by which all others are compared. And so we move forward to the next lesson, where the smallest act of generosity can become a chain stronger than iron. Rule 10. Turn favors into chains. Have you ever received help so timely, so perfectly suited to your need, that you could never quite forget the one who gave it? True power often hides in such moments, not in grand displays, but in quiet acts that leave a weight in the heart. The Stoics would say that gratitude, once born, can shape a man's path more surely than force. Seneca wrote, "He who receives a benefit with gratitude repays the first installment on it." But what if the giver chooses to let that debt grow untouched? The one who understands this art offers help not for the fleeting sweetness of thanks, but for the enduring strength of its memory. You give a man a solution he could find nowhere else, or you lift a burden he had no strength to move. You do not press him for repayment, nor do you speak of it often. You simply remain present, watchful, until the balance shifts in your favor. I recall a tale of a merchant who rescued a rival from ruin by extending credit at a critical hour. He never mentioned it again. Yet whenever they met, the rival's eyes carried the weight of that night. Over the years, without being asked, he offered information, opportunities, and quiet loyalty. Not because he feared the merchant, but because the memory of that single act left no room for indifference. A favor, when wielded with patience, becomes more than a kindness. It becomes a tether. The longer it rests unspoken, the more it grows in the mind of the one who owes it. And if they forget, a single gentle reminder, "Remember when I," is enough to stir the weight anew. To master this is to understand that leverage is not built in the moment of giving, but in the long shadow it casts. And from here, we move to the next lesson, where loyalty itself can be forged not through kindness, but through shared transgression. Rule 11. Bind loyalty through complicity. There is a kind of loyalty forged not in kindness nor in shared victories, but in the shadows where choices are made that cannot be undone. The Stoics taught that a man's character is revealed in his actions when no one is watching, yet it is also bound, for better or worse, by those same actions. Marcus Aurelius observed, "What is done in accordance with nature is never evil, but men often act against their own nature when tempted by advantage." If you wish for loyalty that endures, you do not demand it. You create the conditions where another steps toward you of their own accord, even if it means turning away from someone else. Perhaps they tell you something entrusted to them in confidence. Perhaps they take your side in a dispute they could have avoided. Perhaps they allow you a gain that costs another dearly. You do not ask for this. You do not push. You merely leave the door unlatched, and they walk through it. I once heard of a commander who never asked his officers to betray their peers, yet those who wished to win his favor did so unprompted. A whispered warning about a rival's plan, a choice to follow his orders over another's. Each act bound them tighter to him, not because they admired him more, but because they had already crossed a line on his behalf. And the more they crossed, the less they could afford to turn back. When a man has compromised himself in your direction, he will defend you to protect himself. His loyalty is no longer a gift. It is an anchor, and cutting it loose would mean facing the weight of his own choices. This is why those who understand power do not merely seek allies, they cultivate entanglements. And from here, we step into the next lesson, where the removal of an enemy's strength can be done without ever raising your hand. Rule 12. Keep your hands clean. There is a truth the Stoics knew well. The hand that strikes is the hand most often stained, even if the act was necessary. Marcus Aurelius warned himself to act without unnecessary display, without pretension, without complaint. For the moment you are seen as the destroyer, you inherit the burden of blame. The wise do not rush to be the visible hand in acts that alter the course of others' lives. Power, when guided with discipline, does not always confront directly. Sometimes it moves like water, finding the cracks, shaping the path without announcing its force. I once knew of a counselor in a turbulent court. He never raised his voice against a rival, never openly accused. Instead, he asked questions in the right ears, allowed others to see patterns they had ignored, and gave just enough truth for suspicion to grow. In time, his adversary's own missteps brought ruin, and when the dust settled, the counselor was not the executioner, but the trusted alternative. This is not deceit for its own sake. It is the discipline of not taking on unnecessary enemies. Seneca wrote that the greatest victories are those won without fighting, for battle breeds resentment, even in defeat. If you can let events unfold so that others move of their own will toward the outcome you intended, you achieve the end without the stain. Let others set the fire. You need only ensure it burns in the right direction. Let them bear the weight of the act, while you stand ready to steady what remains. By the time the world looks for someone to restore order, you are already there, untouched by the chaos you allowed to run its course. And so we turn to the next lesson, where silence itself becomes the tool that reveals more than any direct demand ever could. Rule 13. Stay silent. Learn all. There is a strength in stillness that words can never match. In the bustle of conversation, in the rush to be heard, people often betray more than they intend. The Stoics knew this, that silence, when held with purpose, is not absence, but command. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be content to seem without applause, for the quiet man observes what the restless man cannot. Imagine a gathering where tempers run high. One man speaks over another, eager to defend his view. Another interrupts, desperate to prove his wit. And in the corner, a third simply listens. His eyes are steady, his breathing calm. When insulted, he offers no retort. When pressed for an opinion, he smiles faintly and lets the question hang. In time, those around him begin to speak more, filling the void, justifying themselves, revealing the cracks in their own positions. By saying nothing, he learns everything. Seneca wrote that it is better to restrain the tongue than to regret its freedom. To remain silent is not to yield. It is to hold the higher ground until the right moment to act. Silence unsettles the careless because it denies them the reaction they seek. They will keep talking, thinking they are in control, when in truth they are handing you the map to their weaknesses. Do not waste strength in needless disputes. Let your quietness become a mirror in which others expose themselves. A man who speaks little is rarely accused of folly. A man who listens well is often thought wiser than he is. In this way, you learn without asking, you influence without pushing, and you prevail without the weight of open conflict. From here, we step into another form of power, not in threat, but in the subtle shaping of fear itself. Rule 14. Let fear work for you. The most enduring form of power is not in the threats we speak, but in the doubts we plant. A clear warning gives others something to prepare for, but a silent possibility that keeps them awake at night. The Stoics understood that fear born from the unknown binds more tightly than fear born from certainty. Seneca once observed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If this is true for our own worries, it is equally true for the worries we allow others to have about us. You need not declare what you will do, simply allow the thought to take root. When someone lies, hold their gaze and say nothing. When someone moves against you, make a single unspoken gesture, a meeting cancelled, a message unanswered, and then vanish from their path. The mind will do the rest, weaving countless scenarios in the silence you've left behind. I once knew of a magistrate who never raised his voice, never issued warnings. But when wronged, he would pause, make note, and carry on as if nothing had happened. Those who crossed him began to notice that misfortunes seemed to follow, not immediately, not predictably, but inevitably. No one could prove he was the cause, yet no one dared risk finding out. His authority grew, not through loud proclamations, but through the shadow of possibility. In practicing restraint, you remove their defense. A shouted threat makes a man brace for impact. A quiet absence makes him wonder from which direction the blow will come, or if it already has. That wondering changes how he moves, how he speaks, even how he thinks about you. Let your presence be felt without being declared. Let the unspoken weigh heavier than any oath. For in the space where certainty is absent, imagination becomes your ally. And from here, we step into another lesson, the patience to wait and to strike only when the moment will never be forgotten. Rule 15. Delay revenge for impact. Have you ever felt the fire rise in your chest the moment someone wronged you, that urge to strike back, to set the scales right immediately? It feels righteous in the moment, almost necessary. Yet the Stoics would warn you, action taken in anger is rarely justice. It is surrender. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. For when you wait, the flame cools, and you see more clearly not just how to respond, but when to make that response undeniable." To delay is not to forget. It is to watch. To observe not only your opponent, but the path they choose when they think they are safe. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, standing unmoved as the storm rages, because time itself erodes the strength of reckless acts. When an insult or betrayal comes, you resist the temptation to meet it head-on. Instead, you allow it to ripen. The offender begins to relax. Their guard drops. They tell themselves the danger has passed. This is the illusion you allow them to build, an illusion that will make the fall far steeper. I once heard of a landholder whose neighbor diverted a stream to feed his own crops. The theft was obvious, yet the landholder said nothing. He did not confront. He did not threaten. He watched as the neighbor's fields flourished season after season, the man's confidence swelling with each harvest. Then, one year, just before the planting season, the landholder acted. He redirected the water at its source, securing his own fields and leaving the neighbor's land to dry and crack. The change was swift, irreversible. There was no shouting, no trial, only a sudden shift in fortune from which the thief could not recover. This is the nature of power when guided by patience, not an impulsive blow that meets resistance, but a precise strike that arrives too late to counter. When revenge is delayed until the moment is perfect, it ceases to be merely punishment. It becomes an act of control. The one who wronged you not only suffers the loss, but also the long shadow of anticipation, the nights spent wondering if or when the response will come. That quiet dread erodes more than any sharp retaliation could. Quick retaliation grants your opponent a role in the rhythm of events. They provoke, you answer, and in that exchange, they hold part of the power. But when you wait, you reclaim the tempo entirely. You decide not only how the ending will unfold, but when. And when it comes, it arrives as inevitability, a weight they cannot push back against, because the moment to resist has long passed. The Stoic mind is not consumed by vengeance, but it understands the discipline of timing. There is strength in meeting injustice, not with haste, but with an unshakable patience that shapes the outcome in your favor. To delay is to deny your enemy the satisfaction of seeing your hand move in anger. It is to ensure that when you do act, your action is beyond reversal. So hold your sword in its sheath until the ground is set, the walls are closed, and the path forward leaves no escape. Let them believe they have won. Let them write their own victory in their minds. And when the day comes, the truth will arrive not as noise, but as a silence so complete it cannot be undone. In that stillness, you will not only have avenged the wrong, you will have mastered the game entirely. If Machiavelli lived today, he would not shout for attention or chase crowds. He would move quietly, shaping outcomes from the shadows, letting others speak first, never revealing more than needed. He would not beg for respect. He would stand where others could not move without him. That is how you win, with presence that outlives noise. Subscribe if you choose quiet power, comment silent power, and be ready for the next step toward mastery.